By the way, just to let everybody know, James Radley can't make this meeting. He's the representative on this particular committee, but I'm his sub. So that's why I'm here, not James Radley.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here, and particularly welcome all our new councillors to the Thames Basin Heath Joint Strategic Partnership. Just as a way of introduction, my name is Catherine. I work for Democratic Services at Surrey Heath Borough Council. So our first agenda item is an appointment of a new chairman for this municipal year. Is there any councillor amongst you who'd like the honour?
Don't all speak at once.
Jonathan, why don't you do it?
I'll tell you why, Tim, because the county council is the banker here, and therefore we keep an arm's length.
Okie dokie. I don't think I'm not a permanent member of the committee, so it's no good me being it. But somebody else should turn up.
Going to sit on the side.
Well, I might as well fill the silence. I won't volunteer because this is my first meeting.
Likewise.
Right, let's find out who's done more than one meeting, okay? How many old members do we have here who could fill the gap?
To be honest, I think you're our longest standing member, Jonathan, unfortunately. So
Well, my officers would have a fit if I became chairman. They'd have a fit. We're basically the banker. We're not there to...
I completely understand. If someone could just take over from this meeting, that would be fantastic, and we can sort it out at the next meeting.
I'm quite happy to conscript my Wokingham colleague. Councillor Ian, would you be willing to be chair?
Firstly, I am new here. The second problem is that I had a printer failure, so I've not actually been able to print off the documents, although I had read them. So it's a bit difficult to actually run the meeting without the documents in front of me at the time. So I think I would have to decline on that case.
Fair.
Otherwise, yes, I would do it.
Can I ask? I never actually received any documents. I had this invite from last December. I've not received an agenda or anything.
Can I suggest that Ian could have both the agenda up and the picture on Teams? It's not difficult. All you have to do is to window them.
Tricky.
Yes, I've got to go find it now. Lost it. I have a feeling I will lose this team. It's not Teams. This is it. This is
It's a Zoom meeting, isn't it?
Zoom, isn't it? Yes, which I'm not familiar with because we use Teams. There's a likelihood I'm going to lose you if I try to get that up at the same time.
Why doesn't our officer help you with it?
Shall I start? So our first item, so we've got minutes of the previous meeting to receive and confirm as being a correct record the minutes of the meeting held in November. Unfortunately, we have no real pull through from the last group. So are we happy to take those as read?
I can certainly say that they're correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 3. That is to receive an update from Ruth Shelton, who is from Natural England, and she oversees the Strategic Asset Management and Monitoring Project. Over to you, Ruth.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for coming, and thank you for giving us some time to tell you all about what we've been up to. So I have a PowerPoint presentation for you and full of interesting images. So I shall just share my screen, which of course is always wonderful fun. And hopefully it will work. Here we go there. Let's try that. Now then, can you all see that all right?
Perfectly. Thank you.
Marvellous. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Thank you very much. Okay, so, and I should just get my notes in their nice position so that I can see them all clearly. Here we go. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Ruth and I'm the project manager for this amazing project. I've been with Natural England now nearly 3 years, and this is actually my 6th JSPB meeting. I'm a chartered landscape architect and I specialise in landscape management. I'm also an optician, and I find my unusual skills mix gives me a unique insight. I'm here today with Dr. Daria Dadam, our data analyst, and Victoria Heath, our team leader. Daria, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. My name is Daria. I'm the data analyst for the project. I've been on the team for 3 years, and prior to that, I spent 10 years as a research ecologist at the British Trust for Ornithology, where I did data modeling and bird survey organization. And before that, I did my PhD on the decline of house sparrow in London.
Thank you, Daria. We're very lucky to have your experience and knowledge to help guide the project. We also have Victoria Heath here. Victoria, would you please introduce yourself too?
Yeah, sure. Good morning. Hi, I'm Victoria Heath. So I am the team leader of the SAM project. So I actually started as a seasonal warden back in 2016. And then I went into Natural England into the planning team. And then I came back to this team as team leader.
Thank you. And we're lucky to have your depth of knowledge. It's marvellous. So,
Very impressive.
Sorry?
Very impressive.
Thank you, thank you. As we have so many new faces this time, I thought it might be wise to go back to basics about the project to give everybody a nice summary. So that's where we're going to start, and then we're going to go on to a 6-month update of the last our activities since the last meeting. Obviously, if you have any questions, could you please pop them in the chat, and we'll save them to the end. You remember from the first page of our written report that we have 2 recommendations for you to consider for approval, and I'll address them in our final 2 slides and ask you for your decisions if that sounds like it's a good idea. Smashing. Okie dokie. So on we go. So I thought it would be very useful, like I said, to go back to basics and talk about what the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area is, very briefly. So on this map, you can see the location of the Special Protection Area we look after. As you can see, it's fragmented across the 3 counties. Of course, it would have been one large area of heathland before all of our modern development happened. But this person-made landscape has actually been here for 10,000 years. We have several very interesting species that have adapted to live purely on heathland, so we really do need to look after what we've got left. A special protection area is an area designated to protect rare, vulnerable and migratory birds. We have 3 on the Thames Basin Heath. You can see them here, and we've got a nightjar, the Dartford warbler and the woodlark, and the area was notified as a special protection area back in 2005. When we talk about ground nesting birds, we really do mean ground nesting. This is a nightjar egg in a nightjar nest. As you can see, it's sitting directly on the ground. When the birds hatch, the chicks are sitting directly on the ground, very well camouflaged, but directly on the ground, and so very vulnerable to predators and disturbance. This is a woodlark, and there's the nest sitting right snuggled up into the bracken. Really good camouflage, really tucked away, but they do have a habit of wanting to nest quite close to the paths, which is a challenge in itself. And this is a lovely photo of the heathland. It's actually at Chobham Common. You can see all the beautiful colours, and nestled in the undergrowth there will be potentially all 3 of these very delicate and vulnerable birds. This is another map of the special protection area with all of your local authorities shown on it as well. The blue dotted line there is critical to this particular project. So as I mentioned earlier, the special protection area was notified in 2005, and the framework agreement that we worked to was agreed by all of your local authorities and was finalised in 2009. This framework agreement identified the buffer zone that you can see shown here, and every development which occurs within the buffer zone has to contribute to the project, and I'll give you some more details on that in my next slide. No new residential development is allowed within 400 metres of the SPA, which you can see is shown here in that sort of coral colour. And there is actually an additional buffer zone outside of the 5 kilometre blue dotted line, which is the 5 to 7 kilometre buffer zone. All developments in there have to contribute to the project as well, but their contributions are lower. So the strategy itself is twofold. We have the tariff, which applies to all new residential developments within that buffer zone, as I've mentioned. Hampshire County Council, as Council again very kindly pointed out, receive the funds and monitor the payments and maintain the investment fund. And the SAM project is to be funded for perpetuity. Now, I thought perpetuity meant forever and ever when I first started this job, but it actually means in this context, it means 80 years for when the development happens. And then the second element of the strategy is the development, the creation of SANG, and the suitable alternative natural green space. The aim is to divert visitors from the SPA, which is a very delicate landscape and would suffer from too much visitor pressure. And the SANG is in the second bullet point you can see there, the effectiveness of SANG as mitigation will depend upon the location and the design, and we'll keep coming back to that because the location is key. On this slide here, you can see all of our land management partners. So there's 26 folk all working together, and we tend to refer to this group as the Access Management and Monitoring Partnership, or AMP. We have quarterly AMP meetings, as well as the biennial JSPB meetings, which is this one, of course. And at the AMP meetings, we share best practice and exchange ideas and look for ways to help each other and look after the heathland. So what do we do on the SAM project? So is that a question from somebody? No, okay. Apologies. So what do? We focused all of our efforts on delivering this fantastic strategy that you have all developed in conjunction with Natural England. We've captured that in the team plan that you can see here. And in an ideal world, we would like everyone in Surrey, Hampshire and Berkshire to connect, respect and protect their heathland. We will enable this using education, engagement and monitoring to deliver our 3 key messages, which are: please keep to the path, be wildfire aware, and be aware of the green spaces on your doorstep, which is how we describe SANG. We've developed signage to convey the please stick on the path message as clearly as possible. And here you can see some of our team putting the signage up. We only put it up during the bird nesting season, and we take it down again at the end of the bird nesting season, so that it's a new and interesting sign. The signage has actually been adopted by all of the land management partners, so it's across the patch. We're keen to present a unified message, as this aids understanding and compliance. We also do pop-ups and events and wardening, which Victoria will talk to you a little bit more about in a short period of time. We've also got a group called Heathland Hounds. So we do visitor surveys for the SPA, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a little while. But the last one was in 2018, and it let us know that 74.6% of those interviewed had at least one dog. So dog owners are our biggest audience, and were in 2018, and that was before the pandemic, and we know that there has been a large increase in dog ownership since the pandemic and lockdowns and things. So we're expecting that to go up. So they are our largest audience. And the Heathland Hounds group was set up as a Facebook group by two of our wardens. And I love saying this side because every time I do it, the numbers go up. So we currently have 1,569 members of Heathland Hound, and every member signs up to the Good Dog Guide. We actually tailor our messages to them directly by asking them to, we have a hashtag called pause on pass, please. So if their canine companions can just stay on the pass, that will make a big difference for the very vulnerable ground nesting birds. The fire and rescue services we work with have canine fire awareness helpers too, and you'll see a photo of one of those later on. And of course, the SANGs are designed with dog owners in mind. Okay, so that's the brief summary. I hope it wasn't too quick. Of course, any questions, we can address them at the end, no problem at all. But I shall hand you over to Victoria now to tell you our wardening news. Over to you, Victoria.
Well done.
We might have.
Sorry about that. Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry about that. My internet dropped out. Okay, so I'm going to talk about wardening news. So this is an update about what we've been doing since we last spoke to you in November. So as you can see, this is the current team with all the seasonals this year. So our wardens are always wearing their uniforms when they're out and about across the SPA. You can see the obvious burgundy colour, which stands out quite a lot on the Heaths, and also the Heath and Hounds uniform that Joe is wearing there in blue. So we monitor the coverage of the sites to ensure we're spreading ourselves evenly as possible, but we'll tell you a bit more about that later. So we're delighted to inform members that our year-round warden, Nikki Buckland, was successful in her application for the new comms officer to work alongside our current comms officer, Sarah Bunce. So she started her new role on the 20th of February this year, but she has retained some of her wardening responsibilities, which she will hand over to the new replacement year-round warden once they're in post. So interviews for this year-round warden should take place in the next few weeks for a start in September. So that's very exciting. So we're also delighted to inform members that we have a wonderful team of seasonal wardens this year. So we had 5 of them start on the 27th of February this year, before the ground nesting bird season officially started. So that's 2 full-time and 3 part-time. So this is actually the first time we've started them this early, and it's proven to be hugely beneficial. So this has meant that the seasonal wardens could actually get a head start in their training and go out to warden on the heathlands sooner. And their contracts run out on the 15th of September, and that's when the nesting season officially ends. So in order to achieve our goal of having 6 full-time equivalent wardens, we engaged a second round of recruitment this year as well. So we, out of the back of that, we had 2 more, 1 full-time and 1 part-time start on the 24th of April, and their contracts also end on the 15th of September. So in total, we now have 5.6 full-time equivalent seasonal wardens. So this is about weekend wardening and pop-ups as well. So weekend wardening has been really successful this year, with wardens ensuring they do 2 weekends a month. So that's 4 weekend days a month. This has increased our coverage across the heathlands on Saturdays and Sundays, and has given us a more comprehensive and even coverage of people who use the heathland throughout the week. And then therefore we also reach the people who only use the heathlands at the weekends too. So in regards to engagement, seasonal warden Kay, so she's pictured here taking a selfie, is working closely with the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, so that's the DIO, to lead some joint pop-ups. So the team have an access and recreational advisor who wants to use these pop-ups to engage with the public, and also potentially bring along a soldier to highlight how well hidden they can actually be in the landscape. Kay has booked in 2 pop-ups a month from June to September, spread out across the MOD land on the SPA to facilitate this. So that's a great success. This year, we've decided to gather data on how SANGs are used during the ground nesting bird season as well. So the team are currently undertaking summer SANG surveys. We usually just do the winter ones, but the summer ones also allow us to compare the data. So at the moment, we have 82 SANGs to survey. So progress is good, and we'll report our findings as soon as they're collated. So we'll talk more about this later on. So this is a graph of wardening interactions. So May actually saw the highest interaction per hour ever recorded for this month. And this May was also the second highest interaction per hour ever recorded, only behind the record of July 2022. Now in July, we have our Heath week, and I'll explain more about that later, but Heath week has huge interactions. So events. So last autumn and winter, we held several seasonal events with various themes, including the first time ever we did a Halloween Heathland event at 3 locations, which were very positively received. And we reached 171 people face to face with these events. We also did 3 Christmas wreath making events, which reached hundreds of people. So it's a free Christmas wreath that people make, and sometimes they're with us for a couple of hours so we could really get our messages across. We held 2 new events to celebrate World Forestry Day. So Nikki held an event with Forestry England on Brams Hill, and our wardens also created and led a guided walk on Lily Hill Park SANG. And this was called Tremendous Trees. So we like to lead events on SANGs to encourage their use, and also Lily Hill was perfect for this as it had a variety of native and non-native trees. We participated in the Yateley, Blackwater and Derby Green Great Big Green Week and attended the Sustainability Fair at Yateley Green for a 2nd year running. And we were also able to talk to a large amount of SPA users for the first time and get them really excited about the new green space on your doorstep. And lastly, over winter, we attended lots of volunteer work parties, as we always do, and this is on the SPA with our partners. So this is a great chance to speak to the local people and volunteers about our project and spread our message, as well as improving partner relationships and carrying out direct Heathland improvements as well. So this is a win-win for everybody. So some of the partners we've worked with were Hampshire Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust on Velmead, Surrey Heathlands Partnership on Brookwood, Hampshire County Council in Yateley, and many more. So we always seek to support our partners fairly and consistently as well. So this was the first year ever for Wildfire Awareness Week. So the SAM team actually helped organise Wildfire Awareness Week for the Easter holidays with Surrey Fire and Rescue Service. So the reason why this was its first year and the idea came about was because during Heath Week last year, we actually had 5 wildfire events, but only one of them was attended by the fire service because all the other times they're actually out fighting wildfire. So the idea was to actually inform the public and engagement about wildfire before Heath Week, so that we could get in there early, and especially during the Easter holidays as well. So it went really well, and we can definitely build on it for next year. So overall, we did 3 wildfire events, which reached 250 to 300 people face to face. So they were actually designed to be fully interactive, and there was lots for the kids to do. Fire engines and the wildfire service are very popular with kids and families, so it was great success. So actually the Heath and Hounds wildfire event went very well as well, with the fire dog present, as you can see in the picture there in the presentation. So this was fantastic in engaging the dog owning target audience as well. Also, as many of you know, litter can actually be a fire fuel. So we decided to do a partnership litter pick, and as a result, we rid 8 sacks of litter from Chobham Common. So the fire rescue service thanked us massively for our help and support during the planning process, and they said they couldn't have done this without us. So that was great. And this is an example of our messaging. So it's quite simple fire prevention messaging. It looks quite dramatic on there for the so that people notice it. And this slide unfortunately shows one of our nesting bird nests that has been burnt in the fire. And a small fire, even a small fire, can spread very, very quickly. And even if people think that they've put it out, if they've had a barbecue, it can still burn underground because the ground is peaty. So the fire can actually spread underground and pop up somewhere else. So it's getting those messages across and to help the public understand that it's a huge threat to our habitat. So we also give out these free resources to encourage families to get the wildfire message across to their children. And Michael, our education officer, has been doing these junior citizen events about wildfire, which we'll tell you more about later. So Heath Week. So Heath Week is our busiest time of the year, and it involves a whole week of educational and interactive events for the public to learn about Heath and habitat and the rare wildlife. So we lead events and also help our partners run their own events and help them organise. And last year we spoke to over 1,000 people face to face and reached up to 100,000 people on social media. So and that's just in 1 week. So it's a huge, fantastic engagement opportunity. So we're actually in the midst of planning Heath Week 2023. So as you can see, the dates here are the 24th to the 30th of July. And so far we have 26 events planned with various partners and other organisations. So this is including the Fire Rescue Service, Hart District Council, Surrey Wildlife Trust, Arc Trust, Forestry England, and many more as well. So we're holding our usual repertoire of events and hoping for even more partners to get involved with hosting their own events as well. And we've put extra focus on leading more guided walks. And this is for multiple reasons. So guided walks require fewer staff. They have a limited number of attendees, so we can pick places with smaller car parks that we may not have used before. And they also allow for lengthier and higher level of engagement. And as a result, a deeper understanding may be achieved of our messages. So the Hampshire Reptile and Amphibian Roadshow is actually being repeated for a second year. It was so popular last year that we actually needed more parking to accommodate the 251 people that attended that one event. So as a result, we've switched location within the same site to accommodate for this. I'll now hand you back over to Ruth to talk about education.
That's great, Victoria. Thank you very much. I know it's really hard to summarise 6 months of passionate activity by a dedicated team, but that was a great summary. Thank you. So I'm going to talk to you about our amazing Heathlands, which is the name of our Heathland focused schools programme. It's run by Michael Jones, who is our Education and Engagement Officer, and the aim of the programme is to meaningfully connect school children and their teachers to wildlife and the local heathlands through fun and engaging activities. People are inspired to take an active role in protecting our heathlands, from minimising disturbance to those ground nesting birds, to reducing wildfires, to getting involved in biological recording through citizen science. As you can see, we've been recording our efforts in this area since 2019, and the pandemic years obviously had an impact, but the numbers are now increasing again. Michael has already surpassed last year's total number of engagements, and we're only in July. Word is spreading about our educational offering, and feedback has been incredibly positive. These are high quality engagements that take place in sessions ranging between 1 and 3 hours. There is time for a deep level of engagement and considerable nature connections. The best way of connecting children to their local heathland is to get them to experience it firsthand. Children are fascinated by the animals and plants that make a home on this rare landscape and go away inspired to tell their family and friends about how everyone can protect it all. These sessions spread our key messages about responsible heathland beyond the direct interactions. It also plays a significant part in getting children excited by nature. The teachers are encouraged and supported with resources to get their children to create projects about the heaths. This turns a one-off visit into a longer-term learning experience. There are also opportunities to design posters to encourage people to help the heath, and some of these are displayed on local heathland sites. The feedback has been incredibly positive. Here's one from a forest school lead. And here's one from a Year 4 student. The Junior Citizens sessions teach Year 6 children about being safe in the countryside. This year, Michael has participated in Junior Citizens at Reigate and Guildford. He focuses on fire awareness for his contribution to the event. Through these sessions, 2,222 Year 6 children learned about their local heathlands, the significant issue of wildfire and how to avoid it, and what to do if they spot one, is stay safe and call 999. These events are a great way to engage with a large number of local children about one of our key messages. In collaboration with the Farnham Primary Care Network, Michael ran a series of noticing nature walks at Caesar's Camp. These wellbeing walks are designed to get local people enjoying the wonderful heathland on their doorsteps. They were advertised directly to the local community in community centres and GP surgeries. The quote you can see here is from a boy who had not been able to attend school for a long time, and at the start of the walks he admitted he wasn't a fan of nature. In addition to the undoubted well-being benefits, connecting people with their local heathland encourages them to look after the area by taking ownership of this special habitat. They can then encourage others to get involved and help protect the landscape too. So that's a very brief summary of our education offering for the last 6 months, and I'll do a similar thing now for our communications work. So as we've mentioned earlier, Nicola Buckland on the left here has been appointed to the Communications Officer role alongside Sarah Bunce. Nicola and Sarah have both been with the project since 2015, and they make a great team, and we're very grateful for all their knowledge and input. The recruitment of this extra communications officer was approved at a previous JSPB meeting as part of our succession planning, as Sarah plans to reduce her hours with a view to retiring. We'll also be able to benefit from them being able to cover each other for holidays and things like that. They've been working really hard, of course, and one of the projects we're working on is to produce a new Green Space on Your Doorstep booklet. So you may or may not know this, but we produce an A5 booklet with a map in the centre and then listings of all the SANGs available in hard copy, and it's one of our most popular leaflets. The current edition has 62 SANGs in it, and the new edition, which we're really close to getting published, has got 82 SANGs in it. So that's an indication of how much development there's been over the patch. There is, of course, a Green Space on Your Doorstep area of our website. I don't know if you're aware of that yet, but it has a list of all of the SANGs available, and it's kept up to date and live all the time. And it's got a postcode finder. So if you want to find the SANG that's nearest to you, just pop your postcode in and it gives you your options where you can go and explore. Here are a few images of some new SANGs that will be added to our directory. And of course, they're working very hard on Heath Week. So creating posters for the events, advertising the events, getting the word out there on social media to let people know what's going on. Here's a lovely selection of photos from the last couple of Heath Weeks that we've done. And it is a family orientated, free of charge, celebratory week aimed purely at spreading the word about our precious local heaths. There are lots of family events, from treasure hunts to wellbeing walks, trips to the movies, and a chance to hold a smooth steak. And of course, our wildfire roadshows, which are designed to raise awareness of the wildfire issue. All of the information is on our website, so do please have a look and feel free to come along. This is a chart of our social media reach across the last couple of seasons. And you'll notice that Facebook and Twitter reach exceeds Instagram at the moment, but that's something we want to work on. You'll also notice that the peak engagements tend to be around February, March, when we're pumping out news about the start of the ground nesting season, and in July when we're plugging Heath Week. Pleasingly, the biggest peak is at Heath Week, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about our recruitment, how it's gone and what our plans are. And this is a reference to the report that we sent round. So as I've mentioned, Nikki was successful in her application for the Communications Officer role, and we're actually interviewing next week for Nikki's replacement. We had 7 applications for that one role, which highlights the level of interest in a year-round role attracts. This is our current team structure. And as Victoria said earlier, we have a brilliant team of seasonal wardens this year. We had to advertise the jobs twice and run 2 inductions to get our fab team of 5.6 full-time equivalent between them, which is a little below our goal of 6, as you can see on our team structure plan. This is the 2nd year we've had this difficulty. There's been a reduced interest in seasonal warden roles across the conservation sector for several years now, and it shows no signs of changing. We're therefore proposing a change of our team structure. And this is the proposal. You can see it's very similar, but if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, I'll go back to the current structure. And this is the new structure we're proposing. We would like to convert our 6 seasonal roles into 2 full-time roles and 2 seasonal roles. And we'd like to do this for a period of 2 years to gauge its effectiveness. Towards the end of that period, of course, we would come back to you and request your approval to either return to the current structure or to continue with the new structure. There'll be no change in the salary costs of the project, as this is delivering the same level of full-time equivalent employment. The 6-month contract currently costs the same as 2 2-month contracts and 2 6-month contracts. We would get a greater level of interest in these full-time roles, as shown by the interest in the current vacancy. It would give us a larger team over the winter months to plan for the summer and plan for Heath Week, and to lend additional support to the areas of work such as education and Heathland Hounds. We would also reduce the amount of time they have to spend recruiting and inducting staff. This had to double up the last 2 years. There would be an increase in the salary cost this year, but due to another element coming in under budget, and I'll give you a bit of detail about that later, the projected project spend, would remain much the same for this financial year. And what I'll do is I'll revisit this right in the final slides, as I mentioned at the start, and we can decide whether we think that's a good idea. So our next area for us to talk about is the monitoring. And for this, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Daria Didam to give us her summary.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Good morning again, everyone. So I'll give you a quick update on the monitoring side of the project. First of all, I'll be telling you a little bit about the past 2 winters worth of SANG surveys. As Victoria mentioned, we've been doing specific SANG surveys for the past 2 years, and we're adding a summer one this year as well, which we'll report on in later meetings. I will pass on the baton back to Ruth to talk about the SPA visitor survey plan for this summer, and where we are at with the bird survey for next year. And then I'll take back the reins to talk to you about the car park transect we've been doing for a number of years. I'll be telling you the results for the past 5 or 6 years. Next slide, please, Ruth. Thank you. So SANG visitor service, why do we do that? As Ruth has been explaining earlier on, SANGs are really an important part of the project. So it's extremely important to understand how visitors use it, what are their strengths, and if they have any improvements in mind. So to do that, we do SANG's survey. It's a list of 14 to 18 multiple choice questions that we ask people within a 1 hour slot for each of the SANG. So we've been doing this for the past 2 years, and the first thing to notice here is that we've been able to cover all SANGs open at the time. This is something we haven't been able to achieve before, so it's quite an important result in itself. Next one, please. We've also been able to survey over 250 people each year. Next, please. And we also count the number of people present on SANGs, because currently SANGs don't have people counters, so we don't really have a clear understanding of how many people use these green spaces. So we're also counting the number of people that we see to have a snapshot, and keeping survey methodology the same over the years, we'll be able to have a look at trends. You can see here that, for example, this year, we counted just shy of 1,000 people. Next one, please. So, next slide, if you can, Rose.
Apologies, I appear to have a little bit of a recalcitrant computer. Let me try that. Third time lucky.
That's okay.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the results. The first question we ask is what is the main activity undertaken at the specific SANG on that day. You can see here on the x-axis a number of possible answers, and on the y-axis the percentage of responses for each. Last year's last winter is in orange, and the winter before is in blue. You can see immediately here that on the left-hand side, both columns quite clearly mark that the main reason for visiting SANGs is dog walking, which fits very well with what Ruth was saying, that the SPA visitor survey also suggests that the main audience is dog walkers. Followed by people walking, generally it's a lunchtime activity, and then any other activity really comes quite lower down. Next one, please. Then the question we ask is how long do you spend on this specific SANG? Again, you can see the different categories on the x-axis, and the two winters, the two different colors. And you can see here that the majority of people spend half an hour to 1 hour on the SANG, followed by even shorter visits of less than 30 minutes. And then it goes much less frequent, the longer visits. I'm expecting the summer survey to show a difference here, which would be quite interesting to compare. Next one, please. And then we also ask how frequently people visit SANGs. You can see the middle category of 1 to 3 times a week being the most common answer. So this is already quite frequently. However, if you think of that as the middle ground of the graph, and you take it on the left-hand side, those are the even more frequent categories, so most days or daily, or even more than once a day sometimes. And you can see that the left-hand side of the graph has much taller columns for both years than the right-hand side, indicating that quite consistently people do use the SANGs quite a lot. And columns for both years are quite similar, indicating the strength of the result as well. Next one, please. One of the key points that we need to understand is what is the catchment area of people using SANGs. Ruth has mentioned earlier on the success of SANGs depends on their location, and so this is an important question to ask. How far have you come today? And you can see here on the left-hand side, for both years, most people came within 1 mile of the SANG, which means that it's really local people consistently across years so far that come to visit SANGs. So this is really, really important. And it suggests that we're actually placing SANGs in the right places as well. Next one, please. We also ask people how you get to SANGs, and this is where the 2 years have differed somewhat. So if you concentrate on the blue bars, this is winter 21-22, you can see the 2 bars are pretty similar, indicating that people had equally come by a vehicle or on foot. If you then look at the orange bars, this is last winter, results, you can see that people have come by caravan a bit more often than on foot. If we look at the Met Office summary for the local area, they suggest that the winter 21-22 was warmer than average, perhaps then indicating that people didn't mind coming on foot to the Sang, while last winter was colder than average, hence perhaps why people decided to come by car vehicle a bit more often. Next one, please. We also ask why they chosen that specific Sang over any other green space available to them. And you can see the left-hand side quite clearly for both years. The reason is proximity to home. So it's convenient for them to use those Sangs. It makes absolute sense since we've just showed you that most people come from within 1 mile of their homes. So again, placement of Sangs is really quite crucial. Other categories are mentioned less often, but they have to do mainly with dogs. Dogs' enjoyment, they can be kept off lead, variety for paths for both the human and the dog alike as well. Next one, please. And then finally, we ask them if they can think of any improvements. We obviously want people to keep using Sangs, so it's quite important to understand whether they feel there's any difference they would like to see. Reassuringly, most people say that no improvements are needed. This is the left-hand category, the tallest 2 bars, and this was consistent between years. The second tallest bars is this other category, which actually includes amenities such as a coffee cart, toilets, dog washing facilities, this kind of amenities. Whilst it's really important to make note of these wishes, we also have to remember that the role of Sangs is to effectively provide a comparable habitat to the SPA. So it's good to know about it, but it might be out of the remit of the Sangs. Finally, a note is better path. Better path is just how winter 21-22 was a much wetter winter than last winter, and the paths were much muddier. So that's why people remarked on them a bit more. I'm sure that in the summer, paths will come as less important. Next one, please. Thank you, Ruth. So just to have a summary, what are our typical Sangs users in winters? Well, there are dog walkers who spend half an hour to 1 hour on each site, several times a week at least. They are locals, come within 1 mile, and they come equally by foot or private vehicle. They like coming to those Sangs because of their proximity to home, and also their dog tends to like it, and they can be kept off lead as well. They generally think Sangs are good as they are, but if they could see any improvements, there would be a bit more amenities. Next one, please, Ruth, and I think I'll give you back the reins. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daria. Great summary. So I wanted to talk to you briefly about the Special Protection Area Visitor Survey. So one of the asks we have from your wonderful selves is to deliver a survey conducted across the whole Special Protection Area every 5 years. It's quite an area, as you know, and it's beyond the capacity of our warden team to be able to deliver it. So it goes out to an external contractor. The survey gives us some very valuable information that I referred to the 2018 survey earlier, and it really helps to inform our activities and make decisions and to understand how the SPA is actually being used. The first one was conducted in 2013, but this is the first time the senior team as it stands has done this particular task. We published a request to quote, and we're happy to say that Footprint Ecology won the contract. This is the element that I referred to briefly earlier, which has come in under budget. We have a pre-start meeting tomorrow, and the survey itself should start on the 22nd of July, and we will be able to share the results with you at our next meeting. The other thing to give you an update about is the bird survey for 2024. Every year since the project began, we've collected data about the number of breeding pairs of those ground nesting birds that I mentioned that we have across the special protection area. The data for 2023 should be ready to present to you at our next meeting. We discussed our options when it came to how to collect this data going forward on a previous JSPV meeting, and it was agreed that in order to ensure succession, we'd explore collecting the data in a slightly different way. We expect the request to quote to be let this summer for this element, and we plan to have a new method of data collection in place by February next year, which of course is when the birds will start breeding again. As agreed, we'll look to run the new method of data collection alongside the existing method for up to 3 years, so we can compare the data sets and understand any differences. And then I will hand you back to Daria to talk about the car park transects.
Thank you very much, Ruth. So we've been doing car park transects for several years now. The aim of these transects is to have a snapshot of the number of vehicles parked in proximity to the SPA. So the methodology, briefly, I don't know if Ruthie can launch the little video. Briefly, is our wardens drive a set route or transect. There are 6 of those, and they are driven in parallel. And previously we needed 2 wardens in each car, one driving and one taking notes of the number of cars parked. But in recent years, the team came up with this innovative way of using dash cams to take footage of the route, and then the wardens would then watch the footage back. And
can I just check? Can you see the video?
I can't at the moment, Rose. No.
Okay, I think I might be sharing my screen in the wrong way.
It's okay.
Okay,
it's
sorry
so
about that.
complicated. That's fine. I mean, I'm describing it. The video is basically a footage of a dash cam, which you might be familiar with, just passing some parked cars, and our senior warden, Zoe Shorter, counting the cars. So these transects are run in parallel over the summer. Next one, please. And I have taken the data for the past 6 years, from 2017 to 2022. You can see on the column on the left that there are 2 years missing, 2020, 2021. This was because of the pandemic restrictions. But we went back last year and we are doing it again this year. I considered 5 visits to be comparable, 1 at the end of June, 2 in July and 2 in August, and at least 2 of those at the weekend. And for each year, 6 transects. Next one, please. Some results here. This is the number of total number of vehicles counted. Each column, each bar, sorry, it's a year. And the first thing to notice is that there's no real difference year on year. So 2022 is not different from 2019 to 18, 18 to 17. But there is a difference between 2022 and 2017. This is perhaps unsurprisingly, since 6 years had passed between the two, and there'd been a pandemic in between. We know from people counters, for those new, so we count the number of visitors to some extent on our SPA. We have automatic counters. There are 2 the counters where every time a beam is broken, counters as 1 pass across the SPA. I presented last November some trends for those counters, and the next ones will be due in November. And from those, we can see that the number of visitors on the SPA is going up. More people moving to the area, more people are discovering our fantastic Heathland. So of course there are more people on it. So we're also expecting more people to use the car and come using the car parks as well. Next one, please, Rose. Thank you. We also look at the type of vehicles parked. we have 5 categories. Commercial vehicles, first one, effectively cars, vehicles with bike racks, professional dog walkers, minibuses, and camper vans. And each column indicates, each colored bar indicates a year. We can see here on the left-hand side that for commercial vehicles, 2022 seemed to have a high percentage of commercial vehicles parked in our car parks. We're not really sure why that might be, but that is what the data show. But what is important is that the other years are pretty much similar to one another. Then when we look at bike racks, the second category, we can see that the yellow-orange bar indicating 2017 was the highest for the year, showing that in 2017 we had high percentage of people using the bicycles on the SPA. Again, why that happened particularly that year, I'm not really sure. I need to perhaps go back and look at the weather or other factors, but that is what the data show. And finally, the other 3 categories, they're pretty much similar across years. Next one, please. So the conclusions on these car park transacts is that doesn't seem to be a change year on year, but there is a difference when we look at much larger gaps of 5-6 years. So what we suggest is to move into a 5-year cycle, so that we can maximize the power of the transit themselves, but at the same time minimizing the time spent on them. This is a very time-consuming activity. Just driving the routes takes the wardens a total of 30 hours, plus there is looking back at the footage, organizing everything. We have estimated it takes about 50 hours each year to run these transacts. And considering that there's not much change year on year, we suggest that the time would be better spent for the wardens to actually do warden activities. And then if we move on to a 5-year cycle, the transit could be conducted by external providers. Next one, please, Rose.
Excellent.
I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you very much, Daria. Okay, so that leads us to the first of our recommendations for you to consider. We are asking your approval to add the car park transect to the SPA visitor survey contract on a 5-year cycle to be conducted by external providers. Now, I wonder if the best way for us to gauge your opinions on this is to say, does anybody have any questions about this recommendation at this point? And could we see perhaps a show of hands to approve the change? Excellent. And there we go, lots of hands. Good, thank you very much. Is anybody able to see everybody? I'm afraid I can't, as I'm still presenting, to be able to see if we have a...
Ruth, I'm just cycling through people, so yeah.
Amazing, thank you very much.
Everyone's in agreement with that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you've got that one, Ruth. So on to the next one.
Marvellous. Thank you very much, everybody. And so our second recommendation was to approve the changes in the team structure as we discussed. So that would be moving from having 6 seasonals each year to having 2 year-round wardens and 2 seasonals for a 2-year period. Does anybody have any questions about that recommendation? And do we have a show of hands to approve the change? Marvellous. Thank you very much, everyone.
Again, everyone who's got their cameras on or putting in little hands up signs is in agreement with that one as well. So you've got that one.
Is great news for me. Thank you very much. I shall look forward to implementing those changes looking forward to it a lot, actually. It's going to make yes, I'll tell you all about it in the next meeting. Okay, so that's the end of our presentation. Thank you ever so much for your patience and your attention. I know, I think we've been having some questions as we've been going through, and wonderful Sarah Bunce has been dealing with them as much as we can. But are there any questions that I need to address at the moment? Shall I stop sharing my screen?
Yes,
can I
that'd be
just-
great.
My hand was up. Can you hear me? Yes. I just wanted to congratulate all the speakers. I think the presentations are very positive, and can I just say we're in good hands. It's brilliant.
Thank you. That's really kind. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
There are a couple of questions, Ruth. Now let me get this right. Councillor Ian Pittock would like to know whether we counted people that came in with bicycles. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'm sure we would have counted them if we'd seen them, but I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Also,
Can I give some context to that?
Of
yes.
course.
Yeah, I gave an illustration of the lookout at Bracknell. People park there with cars, and then obviously there is cars there, and they walk in, and they do turn up with bike racks and take bikes off those. But some people arrive by bikes. The last time I went there, we had to buy a pass to use the bikes there. So we should be able to count the number of passes that are actually given out. People cycle across the Heath to Caesar's Camp itself, and then leave their bike at the entrance to what I determine there is the Sang proper. And we probably need some bike racks there, actually, because last time I went, I had to chain it up to the fence stroke the gate, because you're not allowed to take your bikes inside.
Sorry to interrupt.
So
Could
there's
I
a question of there's a question of counting the number of passes, the actual bikes that go there, and is it possible a question about whether they put some racks up?
Thank you very much. If I'm correct, I understand that the lookout is managed by Bracknell Forest. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
Apologies if not. So what I would suggest we do is ask those questions to Bracknell and find out what information we have and what infrastructure might be needed. Does that sound like a good idea? Great. Okay. Thank you. I shall ask.
Just to clarify, the people counted on the SPA do not differentiate what breaks the beam. So we do not know whether it's a bicycle or a person or anything like that. The SPA visitor survey does look at that. But we have that every 5 years.
Thanks, Daria. Thank you. Do we have anything else in the chat, Sarah, that we need to have a look at? Or shall I go to live questions?
There is one question from Waverley about the slide graph of the transects, where it showed the type of vehicles, and it appeared to omit normal cars. Have we understood that right? Because it showed commercial vehicles and bike racks.
Yeah, there was the total. The total number of vehicles. It's all the vehicles, and then the percentage. The rest is not that. Yeah, I guess it's not on the. It's not on the graph, because the percentage was so high of the normal vehicles, they was making everything else very, very small. So I had to take it out to make it a size that the sort of smaller categories would show up effectively.
Okay, understandable to us. Thanks, Daria. Would it be useful to the folks from Waverley if we sent that information if they're interested? Because we could do that if anybody wants.
Yeah, sure.
Could we just please, yes, make sure that the figures include everything that's you're counting? It's odd that we don't count the number of people, or you're not showing us the number of people and a comparison of the number of visitors of the largest group. I find that a little bit odd. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We shall send that over. Okay, so I have a couple of hands on the screens here, and I apologise, I'm not sure who put their hand up first. So Adam and Guy, you both want questions. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go first if Guy's okay with that. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions thinking about the SANGs and how we, in terms of encouraging people to utilise those to a greater extent than the SPA area. So one thought was about the car parks and whether or not we considered sort of EV charging infrastructure and what, whether that would be appropriate, and even if it would be feasible in some of the car parks, in order to kind of sort of encourage EV users to come use the parks a bit more, possibly. My other thought was about the wellbeing walks, which sounded great. What that was going on in the SPA, and I'm just wondering whether or not that program could potentially be extended to the SANGs as well, and to they seem like potentially nice, really good sort of calm places for people to experience nature, and as an alternative to hosting those in, or as well as hosting those in the SPA.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we're looking to do with the Wellbeing Walk is the pilot went well, and we want to make it self-sustaining. So we're going to be training folks to lead and facilitate the walks. And obviously it is very early in development, but we completely agree, trying to enable people to appreciate their local sang and connect to it is absolutely something that we're working to do more of. We had an event in the sang in Wokingham just a few weeks ago that was very well attended, highlighting what we're doing there. Apologies, your question about the parking, I wasn't quite sure what you're asking me.
Oh well, but essentially, asking whether or not we can. Whether or not it's feasible to install some EV charging points within the car parks.
Oh, I see. Right. Yes, got you. No idea. Does anybody else have a view on that?
Hi, I can come in a little bit on that.
Thanks,
Sorry, I'm Miranda Petty from Natural England. I kind of work on this from the SD planning side generally. And we have definitely had some SANGs with EV charge points installed or in the process of looking at that. So it's a question that has come up previously. I think it's obviously great to encourage electric vehicles and things like that. We just need to make sure that there is adequate parking in the SANG, so that it's not completely taken over by people who just want to charge their car on their way somewhere else in journeys and things like that. So we do need to kind of have a look at it on a case-by-case basis, really, to make sure there's enough spaces that you can have a couple of charging points, but still, allow those SANG users, those daily dog walkers, to just pop down and have that walk.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think you're right. Certainly, it needs to be a balance. Make sure. You don't disrupt the main users of the SANG. And I think especially as we saw, that most people would go on a dog walk and particularly use that for 30 to 60 minutes. So it's probably quite short for to go charge your car. But you're right. You still want to be able to encourage those people to come down, use the SANG, if wherever possible. So no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, over to you then, Guy, I think.
Thank you. Yes. First of all, I will echo what Councillor Glenn said. That was an excellent report by you, Ruth, by you, Daria, and by you, Victoria. I think it's really enlightening as to the great jobs that you all do. I just wanted to ask, obviously, we've touched on it in both the written report and the verbal report, and we've agreed a course of action on it, but I'm interested in some of the recruitment issues that we have. I appreciate one of the reasons will probably be that we're all competing over a too small pool of potential applicants, but can you give an idea of some of the factors that are putting people off that sort of work? And perhaps related to that, what kind of incentives have we used historically to try and attract people? For example, do we have a competitive wage structure? Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's difficult to know. There's quite a lot of conversation about it within the conservation sector, because it's reassuring to know it's not just us. But the sort of cost of living crisis we feel is playing a factor, because to just have a 6-month contract lends an element of uncertainty. What are you going to do when the 6 months ends? Whereas if you can find a year-round job or a permanent contract, that's much more attractive, as we found when we were advertising the permanent year-round role to replace Nikki. So that's an element. But and there is also it's felt within the sector that the interest in climate change has drawn a lot of young talent into working in that area, potentially away from conservation. But that is speculation, but sort of sector-wide. And it is, when it comes to sort of the salary side of things, of course, we are in a very expensive part of the world. So it is challenging, but we do find that because we get the strong uptake for a permanent position, I don't feel that the salary is a hindrance. It's the short-term nature of the contract I feel that is the difficulty. And I'll be able to say more about that, hopefully, if we get the 2 roles filled. And I think having the seasonals will still give us the refresh every year. That's great, the new ideas and the new minds, but with a full team. So I shall let you know how it goes. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Ruth.
Smashing. Thank you very much. Okie dokie. Do we have any questions from anybody else, or shall I stop now and we can move on to move along the agenda? Okay,
I think that's a yes, move along.
Smashing. Thank you very much. Okay, Catherine, over to you again.
So the next agenda item is our financial update, and that is being led by Jenny Wadham for Hampshire County Council.
Thank you, Catherine. Hello, everybody. So I am Jenny Wadham. I'm Finance Business Partner with Hampshire County Council, and we act as the administrative body for the partnership. So as people have mentioned already, effectively what that means is we act as the banker. So it's the local planning authorities that collect in the tariff income from developers, and then they pass that over to us with quarterly returns. Natural England submit invoices to us for the expenditure that they've incurred, that we then reimburse them, if you like, from the bank account. And then we report back to the board at each of these meetings on the financial position. So just a quick overview of what we do there. The paper itself is fairly long, so I'm just going to pick out the key points for everybody, but very broadly, there's 2 themes to it, and then I'll finish with a quick update on the endowment fund balance. So the first theme we've got is the actual figures for the year ended 31st of March 2023, which are shown in Appendix 1. So as you can see, we received net income for the year of 3.2 million, all of which has been added to the endowment fund, and that income consisted of just under 3.1 million in tariff income and £751,000 in dividends and interest. And we also paid out £570,000 in annual expenditure. The maintenance fund, so that effectively is our current account. It's there to act as a bit of a contingency, just in case we have a dip in income or an increase in expenditure in any one year. And that level has been kept at 1.5 million, in line with an agreement from the board a few years back, which is roughly 3 years worth of annual expenditure. The aim being, what we don't want to do is to be forced into a sale of our investments that could potentially then mean a loss on those investments. We also have an endowment fund, which is there to generate ongoing annual income over the long term. That currently has a balance of £18.8 million, 13.5 million in investments, which is the market value at the end of March, and also £5.3 million in cash. So those are the actual figures for the financial year just gone. The second main theme of the report is looking at the strategic partnership aim that we have of ensuring that the SAM project keeps going in perpetuity. So in the 80 years that Ruth was mentioning. The financial modelling has always been on the basis that the tariff income is a finite resource. So we will get to a point where we're no longer receiving tariff income. And so the investments need to be generating enough income to be able to cover our annual expenditure going forwards. I should mention, obviously, we're trying to project forwards with this, so there's always going to be an element of uncertainty. But what we're trying to do is, like I say, to make sure, or to provide a level of reassurance, if you like, that we are on track to achieve that financial sustainability goal. So we look at various measures. The first one, just looking at our current investment income in relation to annual expenditure. And as I've just mentioned, so our investment income for the previous year totaled £751,000, annual expenditure £570,000, so a good sign that we are on track. In Appendix 2 of the report, we look forward for 3 years to March 2026 to see where we might be. Again, view that with a degree of caution, but we are forecasting total income, net income over those 3 years of £8.1 million. So still getting in a significant chunk of tariff income at £7.3 million, but also £2.7 million worth of investment income forecasted, with 1.8 million of expenditure. So again, investment income still continuing to cover the annual expenditure. We then do a quick check back to the original financial modelling business plan that we did back in prior to 2011, actually, when the partnership was first set up, just to see, are we roughly on track with what we were expecting to see with that business plan? And again, indications that the financials are on track. So all the indications are pointing to a good sign that we are looking to achieve that financial sustainability goal, easy for me to say. We do need to be slightly cautious. Obviously, everyone will be aware there's quite high levels of interest at the moment, so we are expecting that interest income to come down, certainly in the next year or two. And we also need to bear in mind that annual expenditure will continue to rise with inflation year on year. So we need to make sure we're continuing to grow our annual income to be able to cover off the increasing annual expenditure. I just said touch just briefly on the endowment fund a little bit more. So as I said, we've currently got £5.3 million held in cash in the fund. That's as at March. We're projecting that cash balance to rise to £8.2 million by the end of the current financial year, and potentially up to £13.4 million by March 2026. And obviously the cash balance is what we have available for investments. All of those figures are before a £4 million pending investment, which was agreed by the board in November, subject to the year-end position. But if I may, I'll pick that up as part of the next agenda item, where we talk a little bit more about the investments. Also, we're saying that the interest paid on any cash balances held by HCC as the administrative body has to be at a rate of not less than 0.5% below base rate. We typically pay at the base rate or thereabouts. And essentially that's because we wrap up the cash funds of the JSPB with and invest them in things like instant access money markets. So if you like, the JSPB is able to piggyback on the back of Hampshire's investments as short-term funds. So it does get quite a good rate of return. So in conclusion on the finances, it's still looking at to be a good financial position. Forecasts continue to be, as I say, that the project is looking to be on track to be financially sustainable in perpetuity. So I will pause there for questions on this agenda item, if any.
Jenny, it's Sarah here from the Thames Basin Heath Partnership. There's a question in the chat about Runnymede income in Appendix 1. It shows a minus figure for 22-23.
Yeah, so sometimes we do have returns need to be corrected. So the returns from the local planning authority, so sometimes they will have paid us over more, if you like, in one quarter than was needed. Or if we're looking at the actuals, it can equally be that they've submitted a return but haven't actually physically paid the cash over. So we're just waiting to receive the actual money. So it's an accounting.
Can I ask? Sorry, I'm Sylvia White from Runnymede. I actually asked that
Yeah.
question. Can we find out whether you are waiting for some cash for Runnymede or whether there is an overpayment? Could you let me know sort of outside the meeting, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can check that. And we are in constant correspondence with the people who are submitting the return.
Okay.
So if there is anything outstanding, it's often, like I say, a timing issue. We've sometimes had things with the relevant person who's been on sickness absence or something along those lines.
Okay.
But,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'll
Thank
confirm
you.
for you.
Thanks.
There's a question from Councillor Pittock as well about Woking Borough Council's contribution. Councillor Pittock, would you?
Yeah, so these literally are based on the developments that are happening in the area. So it's the tariff income from developers. So it will depend what developments are happening at any particular time. So it does fluctuate quite wildly, I have to say, over the years. But it's not an actual, like I say, it comes from developers. It's not a contribution from the local planning authorities themselves, if you like.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just so glaringly different this year. That's all. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Jenny, Councillor Bermange, sorry.
Sorry.
Dinsmore Maidenhead.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, very quick question, and apologies if I've missed it in the report, but it was 2022-23 the first year where the expenditure was completely covered by dividend and interest? 'Cause that's, I mean, if it is, that's great news that we know in that direction.
I think it's the first year. I want to say last year, I think we were up at 95%, something along those lines. So we are just starting to hit the point now, actually, where the investment income is more than the annual expenditure. But yeah, it's, like I said, I think this year is the first, very, very close last year. I'm sure somebody will correct me if they've got the paper to hand.
Great. Well, it's great to see. Thank you.
And Councillor Hyman, sorry, I can see these hands up.
Sorry, trouble unmuting. Thank you. Yes, I have to be considered a substitute member, I think, because our member isn't here for Waverley. But I'd just like to ask, is there a recommendation for the level of inflation that should be applied this year for LPAs? Because of the high level of inflation that we've had, we normally increase by a few percent per year, and it's been missed. It's not something that's been done regularly, and I think we probably need to get on top of. But because of the rate of inflation, what sort of rate we would normally put it up in April? I think our SAM tariff payments. And any increase in our own SANG charges as well.
Yeah, so
do we have a recommendation?
The tariff income is actually led by Natural England rather than the administrative body. So a funny way that it works. And I know there is a review ongoing now. So Ruth, I'm sure you're dying to come in, aren't you? To
well, I was just going to say that we are having conversations with all of the local planning officers across the Joint Strategic Partnership, and finding a resolution that will suit everybody. Is that a fair comment, Miranda? Have we still got Miranda with us? She's taken the lead on that element of it, perhaps not, but yes, it is. Conversations are ongoing, if that makes sense. Oh, we have got Miranda. Do you need to say anything else, Miranda?
Yes, sorry, yes, we're still investigating it, and hopefully we'll have a bit of join up, I think, with Jenny, and those reports hopefully will help inform what we do going forward. But yeah, excellent point, Councillor Hyman, thank you.
We don't actually have an official chair, do we, Catherine? Is it
I was
back
about to
to
say,
you for the
in the
recommendation?
absence of any other further questions, should we move on to the next item, which again is Jenny, and that is an update from the Investment Working Group.
Yeah, so again, I'm afraid, and I'm glad to see we have got Councillor Glenn here. I was thinking you might not make it, but so Councillor Glenn is the sole board member left on the Investment Working Group. So we are after a couple more members here, but I will provide or run through this report on behalf of the Investment Working Group. Again, quite a long report. I was going to say most of which people will have seen before, but given we've got some new members, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I will try and pick out a little bit more detail for you. So first thing to say, as I said, Councillor Glenn's now the only member of the investment working group, so we will need another 2 or more members. Because of the changes to the investment working group, there are currently no changes being proposed to either the investment strategy, which is in Appendix 1, or the responsible investing policy in Appendix 2. And those are typically reviewed by the investment working group, and any changes are recommended to this board for approval. We're saying we talk about Arlene Close being appointed to provide independent financial advice to the JSPB since December 2018. As I said, HCC are the administrative body, but we don't provide financial advice at all. So it was always envisaged that independent financial advisors would be appointed to give some advice on the investments being made. So that is Arlene Close. And we do have Amara's joined us. He's going to be giving us a bit of an update just after this report. The annual cost of the contract with Arlene Close is currently £11,500, and that rises each year with inflation. However, I'm sure Amar might touch upon, they do negotiate fee reductions from the investments as well, which I think was at about £5,000 per annum at the moment. So already they're covering half the cost of their contract as is. As you'll see from the report, to date, £15 million has been invested in funds recommended by Arlene Close. That is the amount invested, not the current market value, which Amar will talk us through shortly. At the November meeting, the board approved for £3.3 million to be invested as soon as possible. And as shown in Table 1A, those investments were made in early February of this year. The board also approved for an amount of between £500,000 and £4 million to be invested once the year-end position was known. So obviously we now have the year-end position. As I've touched upon, we know there is £5.3 million held in cash, so we could invest the full £4 million. That HCC are poised to make that investment. We haven't done it yet. So if the board wanted to do something different with that money following the update from Amar in a minute, there is still time for the board to change their position on that. Obviously, it would need to be a minuted decision if that's what the board choose to do. Table 3 of the report confirms the amounts that we've projected will be available for investment, so the 5.3 now. And then in Appendix 3, right at the very end of the report, we look at a series of graphs just where we model different scenarios for inflation on the annual expenditure and the investment returns. Obviously, a lot of caveats associated with those because we are trying to project forwards 80 or so years, but that is summarised in Table 4. And as you can see, if we use an average inflation of 2% being the government target, with a 4% investment return, the modelling predicts that we will have sufficient funds to keep the project going in perpetuity. The rest of the report sets out all the practicalities of actually making investments. That's something we include each time we do this report. And just to reiterate, so as I said, HCC don't provide financial advice, but also the JSPB is not a legal entity in itself capable of making investments. So Hampshire make those investments on behalf of the board, and it's therefore worth appreciating that that means those investments have to go through all of Finance's rules and regulations. Finance's Hampshire's rules and regulations. So, for example, there are certain limits we have. It has to go in our plan approved by Cabinet each year for the amounts that we will invest. So just to be aware, it's not a case of Arlene Close makes some investments, the board agrees it, we can then instantly invest. It could be quite some time for us to actually make those investments, including potentially opening new accounts if that's what we needed to do. But I've just noted down very quickly from what we were saying at the start, and that is why Councillor Glenn has said he as a Hampshire member, he does keep a distance, if you like, from making the decisions on the investments and being the chair of this board. And that was all I wanted to say on this, because the main event, I think, is Arlene Close giving their presentation. But Councillor Glenn, was there anything you wanted to add as a IWG member?
Thank you, Jenny. Very great update. Thank you very much. Very clear, very easy to understand. The important thing at our discussion, at our, what we call the working group, is that with interest rates so high at the moment and possibly going higher, it has changed the raison d'etre of currently putting in more money. That was the discussion that we had. Remember, the sole reason for starting this investment, because we were sitting at 0.25% for a long period, and it just didn't make sense to be sitting on millions of pounds making such a lousy cash interest growth out of this. So that's why we went into investing with Arlene Close, and a good job they've been doing under very difficult circumstances, which first of all started with Brexit and then the pandemic. And now we're into this inflationary period. So steady as you go is basically how we've been discussing these things, albeit last time just with me in it, which makes me feel a bit lonely. So we'd like to have two district or borough councillors joining us, please, so we can get a spread of views. And that's basically my update. I'm really not keen on investing more at the moment because of the high interest rates, although inflation is still eating away. I think not investing more is a good idea. Thank you very much, Jenny. Back to the acting chairman, I would say. Let's get Arlene Close on.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, are there any councillors who would like to join the investment working group?
Good.
Councillor
Well done, Ian.
Pittock. Lovely. And one more, if anyone would like to take on the role. Thank you very much, Councillor Burmage.
Brilliant.
I'm sure Jenny will be in touch with all the information that you need about those meetings.
Welcome aboard.
Sorry, there is one question that's just come through on the chat asking about whether there is any ring fencing that protects the investment should Hampshire County Council go bankrupt or the local authority equivalent.
We're talking. I presume we're talking about we don't commingle funds.
Yeah. So, sorry, Councillor Glenn. I was going to say.
Well, like any company, we don't commingle funds. The funds are there for the use of the Thames Basin Heath JSPB. They're not connected with Hampshire County Council's bank account. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny.
Yeah. So I think on our systems, the funds are held completely separately. So the 5.3 million balance I was talking about is held as on behalf of the JSPB, not our funds. In practice, we obviously don't have a separate bank account purely for the JSPB. So it's held in the same bank account, if you like, and invested in money markets, etc. But it's obviously very clearly ring-fenced as separate for the JSPB funds, if that made sense. So on paper and on systems, it's very much separate. In practice, it's in the same bank account purely because we don't have different bank accounts for every single body we hold funds on behalf of.
It's something I'll keep in mind.
I wasn't worried about what you guys would do. I was more worried about what government might do to just grab every bit of money it could get for whatever you've got in your bank account to offset any shortfalls. That's all.
It's a fair question.
Okay, if there are no further questions on that item, we will move on to item 6, which is...
We're just going to do Arlene Close, and that's me done.
Yeah, sorry, which is exclusion of the public and press. And we do need to move a motion that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of agenda item 7, as it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act, and that is information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person. If someone could propose and second that for me, that would be fantastic, and then we can vote, and then I can turn the live stream off.
I'm happy to propose.
Lovely, thank you. Is there a seconder?
I can second that.
Second.
Thank you
Oh,
very much. All those in favour? Is everyone in favour?
Yeah,
Perfect.
agreed.
Thank you very much. Just give me a moment to